Oh, yes. That's a mouthful, huh? And obviously from the image, we can actually gather that, you know what, that was traditionally how things happen. That lady who is the salesperson on the right-hand side in the image have just sold a house to the people on the couple on the left. She would have phoned them. She would have made an appointment. And this would have been the presentation in this case. Sometimes, as we finished in the previous chapter, we finished with how do you prepare your presentation. Now, we'll see in this chapter that some of the presentations, you can't actually determine where the presentation needs to happen. Let me rephrase that. You can actually predict where the presentation is going to happen, because like in this case, where you're selling a house, you can't move the house somewhere else. Yes, virtually you can, and that's what people do, or what sales agents do nowadays. But the actual final presentation is you, the salesperson. Let's admit, Andre, you, the salesperson, in this case, a real estate consultant, going to the product, which is the house, and that's the presentation. Opening the door, allowing the people to walk through it, make a decision before they buy. So sometimes the presentation is not a PowerPoint presentation. Sometimes the presentation is not a conversation over a cup of coffee in a coffee shop. Sometimes the presentation is wherever the product is and it's supposed to be. I know that, for instance, if you look at selling cars, for instance, there are different ways of doing it. Often, you as the customer goes to the dealership where the car is, but I've also known, depending on who you buy from, and they bring the car to you based on your circumstances. I bought a car from somebody, from a salesperson. I've never been inside the dealership. All the business happened at my house. He brought the car to my house. I did the test drive in the area that I stayed. We sat in my study and we finished the transaction. So that can also be possible, obviously, but you can't move a house. Or there are people who have tried. Believe it or not, interesting fact that you know that McDonald's, the one that you know, the one that sells those ugly fast food hamburgers, right? And the fries are not too bad. That they actually, from their original place where they started the business, decided to move the business, and they actually got that building on a truck and they transported it to a new venue. So it is possible, yes, and we've seen this before. We know it. It happened recently for those who are on the Western Cape. For those who don't know the Western Cape very well, Grabo, somewhere between Robertson, not Grabo, Ashton, Montague, for people traveling towards Oudtshoorn, and they go through Worcester and Robertson, for instance, for those who know the Western Cape better. They replaced a bridge where it wasn't manufactured there, it was transported there, it was built elsewhere, and they actually took the entire bridge there and they installed it, closed the road for a weekend, and it's amazing how these things happen. But yes, sometimes the presentation is not actually going to be a PowerPoint presentation. Sometimes the presentation is going to be wherever the product is. Anybody can think of other examples similar to this? Can you think of something else where the customer that you want to see, wherever you want to do the presentation is not necessarily going to be where, it's not necessarily going to be where you want it to be, but it has to be there because that's where the product is? Think of other examples. Just want to play with your mind so you can actually... Anybody? I've just given you an example of the house. A house can't move. Okay. So the presentation has to happen there. Would
Tupperware be a good example?
Tupperware is, would you go...
They usually do it at home, at people's homes.
That would be the nature of how the business is conducted required a presentation, demonstration / home party That's the way how they sold their business. They didn't have a warehouse somewhere that kept all the stock. People who were independent representatives for Tupperware basically used their own houses for to host such a demonstration and presentation. Yes, that will be an example of that, but not because that specific product is not available or not movable. It was because the stock that was kept by the host, who's the sales consultant for Tupperware, and they decided that it's a best scenario would be for them to sell these products that's going to be used in a domestic environment like a household, leftovers to be stored, and because that's basically where the range started, with all those plastic containers in different shapes and sizes that they were selling. It is an example of that, yes, but purely based on the nature of the business, and not because the product is not or is immovable. Another example, Andre gave a good one. I can think of another one. Anybody else? Commercial buildings, yes, you're quite right, Teresa. Very similar office space. I mean, you can't take the office space anywhere. Yes, you can upload a 360 virtual tour for people on a site, but when it actually comes to them requiring the final presentation, it would be for them to meet you at whatever office building they are looking at renting space. You would open for them, they will walk through, they will see if it actually suits their need. Something else I've said to you before, again, more along the lines of Tupperware, and this is where the business called Kirby, selling vacuum cleaners, very prominent brand of vacuum cleaners, but you will not find that in any retail shop because they sell directly through people coming to your house. They don't keep stock anywhere. I promise you, you won't find it in a Macro or any of those places. They keep the stock in their own warehouse and they send a sales consultant to you. They chucks a bucket of dirt onto your couch or your lounge floor, onto the carpet, clean it, and hopefully impress you sufficiently that you actually buy. They will then also deliver that product to your door once you have made the final decision. You can't go somewhere and go pick it up. Right. So we've concluded that your presentation is happening wherever the particular product requires it to happen. You only have, and we've said it before, you only have one opportunity to do a first impression. The fact that you are at this point now that you're going to do the presentation, the fact that you have an appointment made already and you are now preparing for your presentation means that you have made a good first impression on the phone already. Okay, so there's a certain expectation with the buyer already. Now, your second first impression, there is no such thing, but your first impression when you do the presentation must match the impression that you've made on the phone. Right. We'll be looking in this chapter at specifically approaches that and different techniques for presentation. I think there's 8 of them that we're going to be looking at. Okay, right. I'm on a new desk here, so I'm trying to move to the next page, but I'm using the mouse that's working with my laptop, and that's not going to work. Right. So what is an approach? Basically, that's the time spent between first time that you see the buyer until you actually discuss the product. Okay. It could be a very awkward period. It is sometimes very uncomfortable situation for people to be in because you have to break the ice and break that communication barrier that exists. And this is what we'll be looking at now, the different types of techniques that you can use to start that process. to start the approach. You're hovering at the moment between, right, I have the presentation, I've arrived for the presentation, the buyer is there as well, and that awkwardness, that first few minutes, that's what we're talking about at the moment. Right. You can, and while I see the link that I've uploaded there, I will upload this link onto the site, onto Canvas this afternoon. I said to you yesterday I will upload that video link for on sales, on a sales call from the movie The Wolf of Wall Street. I had a look at the video again. There are some profound, like throughout the entire movie, language used. I didn't want to actually upload it onto Canvas, but the link is in your presentation, is in the slides, and you can actually watch it yourself. But I just didn't want to, for everybody's best interest, upload material that is not necessarily sufficient or doesn't consider everybody's preferences. Right. However, very important, before we go to those 8 different approaches that we can follow. Remember, when you get to that point, and if we think back to chapter 1, when we briefly, I think it was on page 5 or 6, I know it was on the right-hand side, the right-hand page, the 10 steps in the selling cycle: prospecting, preparing for the presentation or the phone call, preparing for the call, then obviously preparing the approach itself, the pre-approach, before you actually do the presentation itself, all the way through handling objections, right through to the after-sales service that you will be offering, all those 10 steps. When you get to that point where somebody objects and price becomes the issue, it's too late, people. It's too late for you then to return. And that's why closing, we said previously in other chapters, is very important, but how you open is more important. The reason why it's more important is because if you go to that point where you've done your presentation and then we get to the objection stage and the customer says, but you know what, the price, you've lost that person. You know what? And that's where you are now going to, or you are told as a salesperson, you've got to now negotiate. But then you get to the point where you actually end up negotiating where you're cutting into your profit margins now. So the best part is there, in a case like that, to send that person, to send that customer to the competitors. Let them make no profits, rather than negotiate beyond the point where there's nothing in the deal for you anymore. But you will not get to that point, and you don't have to put yourself in a position like that if your opening is impressive. Right, we'll look at the 8. We will start and we'll go clockwise, right at the top with the introductory, complementary, referral, benefit of the question, opinion, product, premium, shock or dramatic approach. Each of these individually we'll look at in the next couple of slides. Right, let's start with the introduction approach. This is where you basically, like the lady in the image and on the front page of this chapter, basically walked up to the customers, stuck a hand out, introduced himself or herself, and that's just the traditional way of how we introduce ourselves. That's the one thing I usually hate, and I've been in situations like that previously this year, where somebody is in a room, walks into a room, walks around the room, obviously meaning business days, and then I have to get up and go to that person and say, excuse me, can I help you? Because that's what I usually do. When I entered this classroom that I'm in at the moment, there were people in the classroom and they were just, but there was nothing happening in the classroom. It was just the students sitting there. They've got an off period so they can actually work, sit on the desk and do their work on their laptops. And I walked in and I introduced myself and I said, hi, I'm Mr. So-and-so. Do you mind if I actually start setting up for the next period, or are you busy with something? Because I didn't see a lecturer in the room. But that's what you do. You introduce yourself. I mean, are you afraid of your name, or that's the common way that we do it? People, I would like to work. Maybe if there's no name tag that somebody wears, that is the perfect icebreaker for you to then, or if you're not wearing a name tag, so the person can see who you are, and even then, it's just the right thing to do and the right approach to take to introduce yourself. I'm so-and-so from company so-and-so. Are you Mr. So-and-so that I need to meet or that I have an appointment with? Then everything is out there. Otherwise, it's like a blind date. You're waiting there, not sure exactly what the person looks like that you're going to, that you have to have the meeting with and do the presentation for, because you've never met and you haven't done your homework properly in your preparation. People, that's why we've got LinkedIn and all these sites available to us and tools available to us nowadays electronically. You can actually get a very good impression of what the person that you are supposed to meet looks like. And yeah, they might have changed. Maybe they put up a photograph that's 10 years old, but still, it will resemble the same type of the same individual. But the introduction approach is a very traditional way and a courteous way of saying, I'm so-and-so and I'm representing this company. Another approach would be the complimentary approach. We dealt with it in the first session this morning when I asked you, how would you want to be treated when you walk into a shop? And one of the students, I can't recall exactly, I think it was Darkwin, actually said that, or was it Luando? I would like to be paid a compliment. I would like to be able to say, oh, you look quite nice. It works very helpful, especially if you mean it. Okay, you don't want to. Oh, geez, have you lost weight recently, sir? Because I mean, the photograph on your the image I have of you is slightly different. So please, people, make sure of your facts before you do because sometimes the complimentary approach ends up not being a compliment to that person. Okay, and you also have to mean it. That's very important. Okay, but it does help because that person will now immediately feel comfortable and will actually wouldn't mind you in talking to them. So that is a very comfortable approach to take. The referral approach. This is where you basically you use another person known to the prospect. And who's respected by the prospect, use that person's name in your introduction. Good morning, my name is Frank. I'm representing so it's such a company. I was referred to you by somebody, and you might know him, and then you drop the name basically. So it also sort of is an icebreaker. It makes the person feel, okay, right now I know how all the dots are connected because such and such a person has referred them to you. You would have probably said that already in your telephonic conversation that you had with a prospect when you made the appointment that you are there for now. Right. Another approach you take is the product approach. Product approach where you basically put the product on the table in front of the people and immediately that will be the focal point of attention. And it allows the prospect or the buyer or the prospective buyer to see the product, maybe even touch the product. If it's something edible, they can even taste the product. But more than one sense is activated, and that allows them to experience it a bit, even if it's just through the senses of smell, hearing, and sight, and allow you now the opportunity to continue and maybe then show them exactly how it works. Okay. I went to a seminar. I was actually not invited initially, and a friend of mine had a cancellation. That was many years ago, and it was in the corporate field. It was a friend of mine who was working at a bank, and he actually they brought a guest speaker from Canada, a motivational speaker from Canada, to speak to host a particular seminar where their staff will be involved, as well as other staff from other banks as well, because it was related to that particular industry. And then obviously there was a cancellation, and he said to me, listen, you can be my +1 because obviously it's paid for already. I thought, you know what, I had nothing to do on that day. So I went along, and I can remember it was one of those auditorium style venues, you know, like the movies where the person right at the back is elevated and sits at the high level, and it goes all the way down to the front, and the presenter is in front of the classroom or the room. The presenter, this motivational person from Canada, who basically were introduced as the best motivational speaker in Canada, obviously, and he told us later why he got and how he got that title, walked into the room, had a 9mm pistol in his hand, and everyone thought, oh my word. He dropped it on the table in front of everybody at the front of the room, and he started introducing himself, casually chatting, whatever. And after about 5 minutes or so, he pointed to somebody about 5 rows from the front and said, it looks as if you have a question that you want to ask. And that person got up and said, yeah, sir, I mean, the gun, what's this all about? And his response was, it's got absolutely nothing to do with anything I'm going to say today, but it got your attention. And I know, I mean, you're not going to take a gun into a sales meeting, but I think, well, as I said, it was many years ago. Nowadays, it's not going to go down well. But it's an example of how you can use the actual product that you are selling to get the attention of the group or the individual that you're speaking to. It could also, as I said, very effectively be used in most presentations. I'm not sure if any of you have tried something like that. Some of you are in sales or have sold. When you're going up to a stranger in a bar, you guys do that, I know. You saw across the room, there's a beautiful looking lady sitting at the bar, and you're going across. What are you doing when you're standing right in front of her and you're using your opening liner, your one-liners to impress her? You're doing exactly what we've been doing so far this entire semester. You are selling yourself. You are the product right there in front. You've actually put yourself on the table, and now it's for her to judge and for you to obviously sell yourself and impress. You've got that first impression. Similar, people, that's a product approach. Anybody use that? All of you have used that before, hopefully. Right. We also have the customer benefit or the question approach, where basically you make a statement or you ask a question that will imply that the prospective buyer would benefit from the product. For instance, the image that I have on the screen there in the bottom right corner. A question would be something like, or a statement / question. Do you, because obviously what are you selling? You're selling these wall-mounted space saver kind of workstations, because that's what that image is. So immediately, if you have done your homework on a customer, you would say, well, obviously, you're looking for something that that can maximize the space that you have available to you, which is limited. Am I right? Yes, I don't have space, and I don't want to actually sit and work in my bedroom. I've got a one-bedroom flat. I don't want to sit on the kitchen counter and with my laptop anymore. Right, this is new in the market because this is the space saver that will allow you to decide where you want to go. And if you're tired of that particular space, then you can actually just take it and mount it somewhere else. So sometimes it's good to lead with a question or a statement that again highlights the benefit of the product that the person will experience should they decide to buy that product. Right, just get my timer right here. Another couple of approaches would be the opinion approach. You just ask for somebody's opinion about the product. So what do you know about this product? So I actually don't know nothing about it, but I'm very interested. What I heard on the phone is one of the reasons why I actually made the appointment, because I wanted to know more. I wanted to see, I wanted to actually touch and feel the product, and depending on what the product is, even taste it. Okay, so ask the opinion of the customer, opinion on what they know to start with, because that helps you to lead with the correct next reply. Shock or dramatic approach. I think that a gun in the room at the seminar presentation example I've used, it could also be a sort of a shock or dramatic approach combined with in that case, it probably qualifies more as a shock dramatic approach than a product approach, because the gun wasn't the product that he was trying to sell. He was just using it to actually get the attention. So that would qualify as a shock or dramatic approach. Part of what you're doing when you use this particular approach is you want to play on the emotions of the prospect. For instance, the products that you see in the image there are all products that in combination is going to help you manage your weight in a healthy natural manner, because it's all natural products. For instance, you know that people who are overweight are often very sensitive about that subject, and you have to, for instance, take a very subtle approach, but you can maybe use that to your advantage when you're trying to sell a product that might benefit them, because we all want to look good. And that would be, I mean, if you play your opening along those lines, where without making the prospect feel uncomfortable about what the situation that they are very uncomfortable about already, you would definitely be able to use it, because you know that they are sensitive about it, and therefore if you can offer them a solution, focus on that. Has anyone heard of any of those products that you see on the screen? I've included that particular image because I mean I'm aware of this company. They an international company. I know that those products you can actually buy. You can buy that online nowadays. I think I'm not sure if it's Amazon. No, it's not just Amazon. I think Takealot also. You can actually buy those products. But all natural products that will help you. I know that COQ10 product, for instance, is a level 5 prescription product that's used for people who want to rejuvenate their skins or their skin later on in their lives when they start getting wrinkles and stuff like that. And I know sometimes people are very sensitive to that particular subject, but I know that in this particular case, it was you required a prescription for it. This is the one that you actually, I think, as a matter of fact, I still think you do. But again, it just indicates to you that the value of these particular products. I've used the omega-3, the one in the middle, because of the the DHA ratio, which is perfect. That's the good omegas and the bad omegas in combination. The ratio is the best ratio available. In other words, sometimes you know that and we often as customers find ourselves in a shop where we have to buy something and there's 3 options available, and the one has 90 capsules. So you know if you have to take 3 capsules a day according to the instructions on the label, it's going to probably last you a month. Then you have another one that actually says you've got to take 2, but there's also 2 a day, but there's 120 in. Then you know, oh, this is probably a better deal. It might be slightly more expensive now, but it actually is going to last me 2 months and not 1 month. And we're often confronted with in situation like this with what is best based on the quantity you have to take according to the prescription. And I went for this particular product because it was similarly priced as most of the other products. It's sort of a mid-range price, but I had to where a similar product requires you to take 3 capsules to have the same effect. Because of the ratio of the content, I only had to use 1. So by buying the product, paying for it the same price and for the same quantity, it will actually last me for 3 months, and I get a better response because the composition of the product, the ingredients, is of a better quality. So sometimes, yes, it is important to use that that approach. Is there any of these particular approaches that you feel more comfortable with? Or can we safely conclude that depending on what product you're selling and what prospect you are selling to, it's probably wise to combine some of those initial ones that we saw? Remember that introduction approach, maybe with a complementary approach, and referral. Those 3 can almost be combined in a nice opening, and then depending on what product we are selling, maybe a combination of the product benefit or the dramatic or opinion approach. I think that's probably the safest way that we can approach the majority of our sales presentations. Has anybody got any questions at this point? Are you on top of your work? Yes? No? Right. At this point, this is the end of this session for us. When we meet again tomorrow, 8 o'clock, first period, we'll do we'll delve into what the sales presentation is. What exactly is included, it should be included, and what should not be included. At this point, before leaving you, for those who've been on Canvas, and remember, I'm checking who's on Canvas or not. I'm not going to put your name out there, but I check every day who's on Canvas or not and who's been to Canvas. I checked specifically for 2 things today, but having been to Canvas, I also, after yesterday, I want to inform you that because we are done with chapter 7, we already started with chapter 8 now. The online class test 2, is available. I made it available last night, so you can actually use the entire today and the entire tomorrow to complete your class test. You only have 1 opportunity to do it, okay? You only have 1 attempt, but you can plan yourself. You can plan your when you are going to write it, because the quiz is available as we speak already for the whole of the rest of today and tomorrow until 12 o'clock tomorrow night. Okay, just take note of that. I'm not going to post an announcement that the class test is available now. You have to take responsibility for going onto Canvas and checking out when your class tests are. I've just reminded you, so if you're not in class and you missed out on that, it's just tough, but the class test is available. Lwanda, you can actually go for it if you want to already, or anybody else who thinks that they want to do the class test immediately. But again, it gives you just that extra time. You don't have to feel pressurized. Okay. Everybody good?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you very much. I'm glad that your connections are better today. Thanks. We'll chat again tomorrow. Stay safe. Keep well. And we'll chat again first period tomorrow morning. Keep well, everybody.